this would be irreversible to a very large extent. So far, the damage that the Obama administration has done to our economy is very, very serious. I think more than any president has done ever in a short period of time. But most of it's reversible. It's about spending money. It's about deficits. It's about ultimately inflation.
Yeah.
This would be almost irreversible. You put anywhere from 20 to 50 million more people on government insurance, government cooperative, nationalized health care. It's going to be very hard to get them off. Medicaid has never been able to be reformed. Medicaid got started.
Sure.
It costs out of control. When I was mayor, New York City pays 25% of the Medicaid bill. I think at that time it was $2.5 billion and rising.
Yeah.
Very, very hard to control it. So this we have to fight, and we have to stop it.
It seems that there is this pattern that is just emerging among the Democrats, which is they actually think that they can spend their way into prosperity and tax their way into prosperity. I mean, the old,
right.
Cliche tax and spend.
What they miss is we got into trouble by spending too much.
Yeah.
The problem was government spending too much, businesses spending too much, banks spending too much, and people spending too much.
Right.
People buying homes they couldn't afford, people putting too much on their credit cards, businesses buying it for credit rather than cash. We were in a spend out of control mentality, and the Obama administration has made all those big spenders look like amateurs.
Sitting here, Joe Biden. Joe Biden said we're going bankrupt and we're going to spend more money to get out of bankruptcy.
Lucky he was never a bankruptcy lawyer.
Good thing. Good thing. All right, let me ask you the political side of this, because you've got, for example, the Blue Dog Democrats seemed like they were going to hold strong. It looks, in my mind, like they were bought off. All right?
Yeah.
The early indication.
I saw John McCain tell you that you can't really count on the Blue Dog.
Well, I've been warning everybody that thought, we won this debate.
These aren't really dogs, These are.
Well,
these are some other comparisons.
On radio, I call them lap dogs, but because they basically they had their arms twisted. They were invited
but
to
you know why? Because they're essentially not economic conservatives. They're essentially either moderates or liberal in districts that require them to be that way.
Right.
So they're doing a show rather than it comes from the heart.
You think that they are creating the appearance that they're more fiscally conservative, so they can tell their...
For anybody that is, I think, an economic moderate, the idea of increasing nationalized health care is a disaster. It's a disaster for the economy. It's a disaster for society. And worst of all, the most important thing we have is our health, and it's putting our health in grave jeopardy.
You look at all the taxes they want to raise now. They want, for example, plastic surgery tax, which, by the way, will greatly impact my future. They want a soda tax. They want in New York, they want an iPod tax, a movie tax, a cigar tax, a cigarette tax. They basically, if you wake up in the morning, they're probably going to tax that.
Well, in the case of New York, it's going to drive people out of New York. I mean,
it already is.
Even the so-called sin taxes, the tobacco, everything else. There's not an unlimited number you can go to. Eventually, you can get to a number that you drive so many people out, you actually raise less money. They did that. They did that with the hotel occupancy tax in New York when the Democrats had control before I came into office. They raised it so high they were losing $1 billion a year. I lowered it by a third, helped get it lowered by a third, and we started making $100 million more.
In the city of New York, a city of what, 8 million people now? 8.5 million people?
Right.
All right. I read in one of the local papers that 50% of New York City's income tax bill, a city of 8 million people, comes from 42,242 people. Is that how could that be possible?
Probably correct. Probably correct. In fact, I'm not at all surprised by that. I mean, because of the graduated income tax. We already have major distribution of wealth going on in this country. Redistribution of wealth. From rich to poor, the rich pay the so-called rich. We're talking about $250,000 or more in New York City. I know this is hard for people to understand. These people, sometimes are two-earner families. They're really struggling. What he will do is drive away wealth, which is, after all, what produces jobs. I mean, Obama's plan, or the plan in New York, the plan in New Jersey, these are plans that will change the nature of our society into a social democracy.
But we see things are shifting. The governor of New York is extremely unpopular. The governor of New Jersey is extremely unpopular. Chris Dodd is in terrible trouble in Connecticut. You see Rob McDonnell emerging, 15-point lead, real clear politics. Barbara Boxer's in trouble out in California. Do you think that with that, coupled with the president's poll numbers, that there is the reemergence of the Republican Party?
Not yet. It's happening. I think that the press conference the president had last week, forget the Gates comment and all of that, it was one of the worst. Because here he was, he has him down to the 10-yard line. He wants to get this health care thing over the top. And what does he do? He gives a press conference in which he doesn't give any answers.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't the beginning of the process. It was the end. He wants to force Congress to vote.
In 2 weeks.
He can't tell you how many people, how much money it's going to cost, how much it's going to save. He gives you this ridiculous idea that it's going to save money. How do you cover 40 or 50 million people and save money? The American people are more intelligent than to buy that.
You mentioned the Gates issue and this, whole beer summit. Let me ask you this: when you say that I don't have any facts and I don't know anything, stop.
I've had plenty of press conferences. You usually get in trouble on the last question, as he did.
Is that true?
Yeah, and very often I would use the I can't comment on that to remind myself to keep my big mouth shut. I would use it as a, and I thought when the president said that, I said, wow, he's
going to stop.
That's smart.
Yeah.
He's reminding himself, shut up, don't say anything. And the minute you say, I don't know the facts, you then can't have an extremely strong opinion about something you don't know about unless it's coming out of your prejudgment.
And then when he goes...
Which is cops are bad.
Well, no, he acted stupidly.
Yeah, without knowing.
It seems
with telling you he didn't know how they acted, but I'm just going to assume the cops act stupidly. The Cambridge police act stupidly.
Now, would it have been better had he just apologized and said, I screwed up, I shouldn't have said anything? But then he says, this is a teachable moment. And then he lectures the rest of society that we could really learn from this. We need to lower the volume. And I'm like, you raise the volume.
He's actually right. It is teachable. Here's the lesson.
Yeah. Shut up.
Yeah, shut up. It also shut up when a cop is asking you questions. How about you don't insult them, you don't yell, you don't scream. My father taught me that when I was very young. I grew up in Brooklyn. It was a good lesson. It's not a bad lesson. I mean, Colin Powell said essentially this.
And so did Bill Cosby.
Yeah, I mean, just keep your mouth shut.
All right, I'm going to confess to you.
Be nice to the cops. They have uniforms on. And
they're risking their lives.
They do something I don't do, you don't do, Gates doesn't do, and President Obama doesn't do. They put their lives at risk every night for us. You've got to have respect for that uniform.
All right, I'm going to confess to you. I used to have a heavy foot, and I got pulled over a few times in my life. And you know what I learned? When you say, yes, officer, no, officer, thank you.
It's the best way.
It goes a lot.
It's the best way. You want a lesson out of a ticket?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That's
just
what I said.
Begin it, boy. Don't ever do the. Well, I wasn't speeding, officer.
No.
He knows you were.
Exactly. Those guns
immediately
work.
You're challenging his intelligence.
Yeah.
The answer is,
I'm sorry.
Even if you think you're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it, officer. I was rushing.
That's what I say.
I'll never do it again. I promise.
And can I tell you, when I used to argue, I used to get a ticket.
Yeah.
Now, except one guy once said to me, "Oh, you're that idiot on Fox." Yeah. That didn't help. And then I said, "Yeah, but I'm friends with the mayor." And they said, "Good. Here's two." No, I'm only good. Good to see you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Sure.
And coming up next, NASCAR team owner and former NFL coach Joe Gibbs tells us his game plan for a successful life. Plus, Conspiracy Month continues, and our own Ainsley Earhardt investigates.